We're live. We are live. We are live. We are live.
Life, alive.
We are alive and we are alive. Oh, and it's so beautiful.
Always.
Yes, thank you.
Always.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Our guest is here. I can see Colin. Good evening, everyone. How does have joined?
Shade.
Yes, thank you for coming on.
Uwa Dele Agbogun.
Colin, we would bring you in a bit.
We'll ask you to send a request.
He has sent already.
I think I even sent a request.
Yes.
Okay, we'll bring you in a bit.
Okay. So, good evening, everyone. I know we're so expecting more people to join. Yeah, you're welcome to the Uwa Talks Free once again. And this is another edition of the Marriage Still Works series. We've had so many editions and it's been amazing. We've been getting so many beautiful stories of testimonies, how the sessions have been impactful. And I mean, we can't thank our guests enough. And today we're going to have another amazing session that'll be so liberating.
And I want to say something. You know, we can learn principles. The world is a global village. We can learn a lot of things searching or surfing the internet. And you can learn as many principles as possible. 3, 5, 10, 15 principles, how marriages work. But there's nothing compared to people sharing their own personal stories in order to highlight those points.
Stories are powerful.
And for over 3 months now, we have observed that each story is unique. And for every story given, it addresses salient areas that along the way we've also been getting quite a number of encouraging feedback. And we trust that today will not be an exception, because we have an amazing people who are bringing up today. You can send in the request now.
And let's look at who have joined us.
Mama JD is there.
Kefua is there. Onobajo, Irene, the Mrs. O. Thank you guys.
Thank you for joining.
Miss Kids 57. I mean, you guys have been amazing. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on here on Saturdays. Onobajo.
Okay, sorry, Onobajo.
Yes.
I don't know. So Colin, you can send in the request so that we can accept it.
Thank you, the Mrs. O. Thank you. Colin has sent in the request.
Okay.
So while we are bringing up Colin and Dawn, because it's not just Colin alone.
Yes.
Time now. So before we go into Colin and Dawn's story, we just want to once again say that this is Marriage Still Works. It's a campaign that we're running as the Uwa Talks Real. I'm the Uwa in the Delua, and he's the Dele in the Delua.
The Dele, representing Dele.
Yes, and Uwa.
Why is it that your name was full? It's full. Why mine is
there's no cheating. It's three of us. The two of us is the 3 letters. So it just so happens that my 3 letters complete, but that's even not my full name anyway.
Okay.
Have you accepted?
I think the earlier one sent, I think it's expired. You can please just help us send another request.
Okay.
So, Colin, you can help send another request so that we can accept it now. I think the earlier one is expired.
Thank you,
Arike. So I'm the one that will correct you.
Today it's our name correction.
Yes, it's about competition.
No, okay, no wahala. You will see that I'm watching every name you pronounce on the show today. Arike. Okay.
They know the NCS one. Can you pronounce that one?
NCS Gallery.
NCS Gallery.
Okay, you're just looking for trouble this night. Thank you, Joshua Anthony Ella. I didn't pronounce that one well.
You tried.
Okay. Okay.
About actually accepted, but it's not.
Good life.
Okay. Mabella.
Mabella, thank you.
Okay. I think it should be up any moment.
Don't do your countdown yet. You know you like to countdown. Don't do countdown so that the technology will not disgrace us. Okay. Colin, maybe you should send a fresh request.
Yeah.
You can send it fresh. That's me.
This one has been there since.
Okay, try this one.
No, it's the same. It's the same thing I'm doing. Seems to finally it's difficult connecting. Hopefully it will come up now. Because I'm feeling that's the previous one. To show like a message.
Colin said they sent 3. We've never had this issue before.
At all. And I've accepted 3.
Yeah.
Accepted 3. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your patience.
Okay, maybe Colin, do you want to log out and log back in? Maybe that would help.
Yes, please. Let's do that. Log out, then log back in. Sometimes it could be system glitch. Thank you. So it's actually been very, very, very interesting. And one thing, while we wait for our guests to log out, then try to log back in. So when they send you a request, we'll accept. One thing I've realized, and we look at your lights here.
Yay!
Welcome. DPC Alola.
Yes. Thank you, Ma.
One thing we've realized is that some people find it difficult to be vulnerable in relationship, and some people don't understand that at times vulnerability is actually the way to go, because sometimes when we are vulnerable, you create the opportunity for healing, because you're able to express what is in your mind exactly the way it is. And
Colin said request are not sending. Wow. Can we use Dawn's account then?
Yeah, I think it's in now. So let's try to accept it.
Okay.
Oh no, it's not. It's on this. This one.
Colin's
is always coming up like that. So hopefully it will come. The one that came up now is the other person. The other skin. That's not happened like this before, but we'll get around it. Okay, see this.
Okay, using my other. Okay, yonder outdoors. He's the one. That's
okay.
So using my other.
Let's hope this comes up. I've accepted the other accounts. So how do you sound this now? Yeah.
Finally.
Can you hear us, please?
Yes, we can hear you great.
Can't see them.
Good.
Sorry for the technical issue.
Yeah. Mama Uwa is looking wild and more beautiful than ever. Woo! Thank you. Sorry.
Why is it not me?
Don't worry, you're fine every day.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adeolu and me. So let's kick off.
King is let's kick off. Yeah, let's move on.
Okay. We are happy that you've been able to join. So good evening, Dawn. Good evening, Colin. Thank you for accepting our invitation. We are so happy that you are here today, and we know that it's going to be a beautiful and amazing conversation. Okay, so the Marriage Still Works series is it's a campaign that we are on. We feel that a lot of working and blissful marriages are not given the exposure that is needed to inspire young ones who are probably not who are not married, and even those who are married and maybe finding things tough, and those who are married and finding things rosy, for them to know that there are marriages who are working, and not all marriages are ending in divorce. Because in the social media space, you get to hear a lot of celebrity marriages breaking up, and you begin to wonder, is anybody's marriage ever working? I mean, is there a marriage that there's not going to end up in divorce? And so that's what this campaign is all about. We've been bringing in guests since we started in April, right? We started in April, bringing in guests to share their stories. And by doing this, we are not saying that there are some marriages who are devoid of challenges. No, we are saying that there are marriages, every marriage have their challenges, but if you are committed to working, I mean, both parties, they are committed to working, towards a working and beautiful marriage, then it would work. So that's essentially what the Marriage Still Works campaign is all about. So we are happy to have you guys today. Dele will go ahead to read your profile and go straight into the questions. Okay.
I should warn everybody listening, the profile is the most brief.
Yes.
That is so rich and so brief. So,
and I should warn everybody that Colin is very funny. So be ready to learn and laugh and just enjoy yourself. Okay.
Yeah, and you will agree with me that he has a beautiful wife.
Honestly,
beside
Dawn
him,
is looking so good
and looking glamorous.
Yes. profile. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Don't mind me. So let me start. Colin and Dawn live near Sheffield in the north of England. They have two grown-up kids, Josh and Beth, and have recently celebrated their 30th wedding anniversary.
Ooh.
Yes, I need to pause so that you can go a bit.
Drum roll! Your back is the drum.
My back is the drum. 30th wedding anniversary. They attend and are a part of leadership team at C3 Hope Church in Sheffield, England, where they met in 1991. Both Colin and Dawn have spent much of their adult lives in business, as well as actively serving in the local church. They both share a love for God's house and his people, and a desire to see his church and kingdom reign extended in their own part of the world and beyond. That is the end of the profile, but I want to add this. They are tremendous leaders that oversee three major areas in non-governmental organizations, and they are really, really busy. And I must also say that they are into consulting. So I need to keep that in, even though it's not stated here. So please, as we are watching, can we help us make them feel very, very welcome and special? Please drop some comments there
in the comment section
and help me to welcome them.
Yes, thank you.
So
over to me. I'm a journalist. I do all the question asking. Okay. So yeah. So we usually start with asking, where you met, how you met, how long you've known, you've known each other. So let's go. Get to meet, how long? I mean, who said I love you first? All those, basically the beginning.
You used to say mushy.
Okay, I used to say the mushy. The romantic stuff.
And that's what mushy means in case.
Okay then. Well, we actually met about 31 years ago, and my mum actually worked with Colin for about 3 years before we actually met. And she didn't tell me anything about Colin because she worked in an insurance company and knew lots of guys because they were all guys that were insurance agents. But one day she brought Colin to our church and just said to me, "I'm bringing this guy to church." On Sunday, they come and say hello. So I'm like, all right, I expected a bloke about 50 or something to come. But anyway, she also told me that for the last 3 years, she'd been telling the girl that she was working with that she could see me marrying Colin, even though I didn't know him. She'd got him eyed up for me 3 years before I even met him.
Wow. Your mom has some deep insights.
She certainly does. But anyway, so he walked through the door. I was busy at the time, sorting something out at the front of the room, and I looked across the room at this man that was with my mom, expecting a 50-year-old, and saw a 20-something-year-old in a dark blue suit, very handsome. I was like blown away, fell in love with this man that my mom was with. So I thought I can't even go say hello.
She's talking 31 years ago. A lot's changed since then.
Don't worry, Colin, you're still handsome.
Yeah, so anyway, so I tried to avoid him and not go and say hello. But then at the end of the service that we were in, about 2 hours later, my mum shouted me to come and say hello. So I couldn't avoid him. So I went and just literally went up and said, "Hello, Colin," and then I walked away. and then as we left the room that night, it was an evening service actually, it wasn't a morning one. I remember sitting in the back of my mum's car, watching through the back window to catch the last glimpse of Colin leaving to get in his own car.
That's where the stalking began.
So it was like love at first sight, though.
It was for me, yes. Yeah, I think Colin was a little bit behind because he actually had a girlfriend at the time, which I didn't know. So the next time I met him, I met his girlfriend as well. So I was a little bit confused, like, that's my husband you're with. But anyway, that was the beginning of the story. And then it was about 2 months later, about a month and a half later, that I found out that Colin had split up with this girl that he'd been with for a few years. And then he came up to talk to me. So I was like, okay then. So that's the beginning of us getting to know each other. And within 6 weeks of that day, we were actually dating.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting because I'd come back to the faith in November of that year, November 1991, and I think I'd made what ended up being a very, very short-term commitment to God to stay single and to get my life right with God first. So that was my resolution in November, and I think it was 3 months later. I think
February.
Yeah, when we started to actually go out together. That seems a very long time ago now.
Amazing. So who said I love you first? And then Colin, when did you come around?
I don't remember who said I love you first, but I do remember being sat near Colin, and after a while, and I said, "Are you going to kiss me yet, or what?"
Well, I've always been a little bit slow on these matters.
Did he kiss you that day?
He did kiss me, yes.
Oh, can you kiss now? What?
Could say I was a proper gentleman because I wasn't presuming anything.
Well, I guess you're playing it safe. So interesting beginning, and now let's go to the next question. So you met, he had a girlfriend, then they split up, then you guys got together. So when did he propose? How long have you been married, and how has the journey been?
August.
Oh, he never proposed?
I proposed suppose I remember. I actually went on bended knee.
Oh,
It was in the August of that year. I went into Dawn's office. She used to work for the hospital, and I was looking. I went into her office and was looking quite sheepish, sort of skulking around the office, and I wasn't really in the habit of going into her office. And I sort of put my leg up on the side of her swivel chair. That was my version of the bended knee in the open office. And I said, "Will you marry me?"
straight to the point.
Straight to the point. And Dawn, you said yes, obviously.
What's that?
Dawn, did you say yes immediately?
I said yes straight away. Yes, I was quite shocked because he'd never been to the office before, and he came round the back of my chair, and I was conscious that my boss was sat right next to me, and that she was probably thinking, "Why is he looking at these medical records behind this chair? He shouldn't be there." So I was half thinking he shouldn't be here, and then he's asked me to marry him, and it was all like, ah. So yeah, I said yes, and he put the ring on my finger. And I remember going home that night and kept looking at the ring as I'm at the bus stop going home, thinking, I'm engaged. So yeah, we got married. We got married the following February, so we were only together a year, just over a year before we got married. So it was a whirlwind.
Amazing.
Why win romance? And you guys are still here over 30 years, still strong, still so much in love. So how has it been? Because being with one person for 30 years, when I was younger, before I got married, I used to be scared. I mean, that was one of my nightmares, that I won't have a long-lasting marriage, because I used to get easily irritated. I felt that I would probably end up killing the man I married, because how can I stay with one man for how many number of years? He will annoy me, he will irritate me. So he's just happy that he's still alive.
My life I'm well.
So how has it been these 30 plus years?
Well, do you want to talk about the first couple of years?
I think I'd say Dawn's got an incredible level of patience. Yeah, I think marriage is a bit of a process, isn't it? I think for me, it's a bit like you get married and that's an event, but then it takes a long time to actually become married. I think particularly for a guy, I don't know. But so for me, I would say the process of realizing I was married took quite a while initially. Probably took 2 or 3 years, I would have thought, something like that. Of coming around to the idea that I'd actually committed my life to somebody else for the rest of it. So that was a bit of an interesting journey. I mean, you only ever do these things once, so you don't get a second chance to learn, I suppose. But that was a strange one in hindsight. That sort of becoming unsingle for me was a bit of a journey, I would say.
What about? Well, I always wanted to get married, so I was well in there wanting to make house and be with Colin. But I think I was a little bit insecure at the time and just wanted to be with Colin all the time. I remember one night he was going out and we were in the attic bedroom and he was getting something to take with him. And I literally laid on the floor and grabbed hold of his leg really tight. I said, "You're not going out, you're not going out." And he just pulled his leg as hard as he could away from me, yanked his foot out of my arms and ran down the stairs. And left me on the floor. Bless him. That was Mr. Single. I'm not.
Yeah, that was right.
But yeah.
What do you say about that? I think Dawn was so taken up by the kind of, I guess, the romantic notion of being married that perhaps I wasn't quite taken up by that notion in the same way.
You were still
Yeah.
And
I was,
funny, you were still okay. Sorry, I didn't know you were still talking.
I was still, I was still sort of taken up with the idea of doing my own thing. You know, sort of and even if even if I justified that in the sense of we're doing this thing together, it was still a kind of version of doing my own thing. But so yeah, I think sometimes you convince yourself that you're doing the right thing when perhaps you're not. So yeah, these are great lessons learned in the first couple of years of marriage.
I can just imagine. I love the word you use. Process.
Yeah.
Process. Sometimes some of us even we assume we've had it all figured out until you get into the reality of the thing. And it tends to be a bit, for me personally, I'm sharing from my own personal experience, it tends to be a bit tough. You've left that single stage and you are now married. The reality is not done on you until a few months down the line, because you always make that mistake. Talking about myself now, of trying to do the things you used to do as a single person, assuming that it will work out. And I learned my lessons also that time, because I now realize that it's just a mere attempting to use a round peg to want to drill it down into a square hole. And when I realized I have to just calm down and come to that terms that it takes a process. That's why I could relate with that.
Yeah.
I needed to bring that up to expatiate a bit on that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us at that stage when we are young, we tend to focus as a young girl, getting married, we tend to focus on, the wedding day, the ceremonies. But the wedding is just one day. It's a one-day ceremony. And then the marriage is for a lifetime. So you have to get into the marriage and then start adapting to married life and marriage responsibilities. What he's talking about, don't just go married. At times you take decisions forgetting that he has to consult with me, that he's not married. And that used to cause a lot of fight for us, because I'm like, you cannot just take that decision and not consult with me, So we totally get what you're saying, being married on paper legally, but in your mind, you're still single. That mind, movement, that mind transition takes some time. And if not well managed, it can cause some issues, for the couple.
Yeah.
So I totally get what you're saying. So good. Now you've been married. I know they've been, which is common to all marriages. There are low times, there are, high times, and, times of adjustment. So how has it been for you? What has been, okay, let me just go. Give us two major challenges and two major high points. So I'm just going to leave you guys to talk. I don't know which I want to start with first. Is it the high points or the major challenges?
Maybe if I just jumping back ever so slightly to the previous question, you'll find this quite funny. When we had the kid, we'd been married about 5 years, something like that, 4 years, and we had twins, of course, one boy, one girl. No, they weren't identical, which is what a lot of people ask. I distinctly remember that's quite a life-changing experience having kids. For both of us in different ways, I suppose. But I remember with this one particular situation, I came home from work, and these kids were about 6 months old, something like this, and we walked into our little 2 up, 2 down terraced house in northeast Derbyshire, and I distinctly remember sort of walking into the lounge, looking around, and thinking, what are all these toys on the floor? And for a moment, I forgot that I was a father. That's one of the highlights.
I think that's probably the actual time he realised he was a father. He's like walked in the house and thought, "Oh, I've got 2 kids."
Like I said, I'm slow.
Yeah, I think also backing on to that last question, you said challenges. We
two major challenges, 2 major high points. Maybe usually if you want to share good news and not so good news, I'll say okay, go with the good news first or the bad one. I don't know which one.
In no particular order.
In no particular order.
Well, one of the things when you get married and you go through the first few years, you're getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And obviously you can have misunderstandings of each other and misinterpreting what the other person has said or why they've done something and things. But also, if you're very busy, which we were, so I think we were 2 years in, something like that, 2 years married, I suddenly realised that I'd misunderstood something on one of Colin's intentions. So he said or did something, and I thought I made a judgment call on why he did that, and it was completely wrong. He said, "No, that's not me. That's not who I am." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I realised that we'd actually kind of drifted apart a little bit because we were so busy doing our own thing, going to work and then doing our own thing at church and in our social world, that we'd actually disconnected a little bit from each other. So we sat and had a discussion about it and then said, right, well, how do we fix this? Because if we carry on like this, we're going to go so far apart that we might even forget we love each other. So we decided that we were still very busy. So one way we could do it was that we used to go to a meeting on a Wednesday night that finished about 9:15. So we said what we'll do is on the way home, we'll do a detour to a motor services garage, so motorway services, and we'll buy a cup of tea and we'll sit opposite each other at a table in a motorway services and we will talk to each other. So we did that for a few weeks and just bought a drink and sat there and talked. And from that moment on, we've always kept talking to each other and connecting with each other and making sure we've got time for each other. And when the children came as well, we once a year on our wedding anniversary would go away for a night or 2 nights, just the two of us, and let the grandparents have the children, and we would make sure that we got some quality time at least once a year as well, which has really been a solid part of our marriage, having that time away. We still do it now, but it's really helped us, hasn't it, through the years to have that time away every year on our own.
That's amazing. 2 things that I take out from what you said, Dawn. When be intentional. You've spoken to intentionality. You've spoken to, facing issues when you notice that things are not going well, and you've spoken to communication. These are 3 key things that every marriage that is succeeding, stories that we've heard, there seems to be that recurring decimal. Intentionality. We can't overemphasize that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Say something?
Yes, I want to say something
because
I can relate with it.
Yes.
Each time I think 2 or 3 other couples earlier previously that also mentioned that, and I love talking about it. I'm talking about intentions. When you said, Colin said, no, that is not me. Sometimes too, when intentions are misinterpreted, it can be very painful to the other person whose actions have actually been misinterpreted. In our own case, I was the one then misinterpreting her intention, and it actually created a whole lot of issues until I came to that point where I said it's better I look at the intentions behind the actions that is actually taken. That is very critical. And another one that we always also deal with that and pick out from what you also said is not being too outwardly focused to the detriment of the health of your relationship. I could see, like she said, intentionality. When you finish from where you are going, you deliberately told yourself when you're going, we have to do a detour, sit down, face to face, have conversations. You pick that conversation out. And these are things, a little simple secrets here and there that you actually dealt with that we can say have actually really helped the relationship very well. And the other bit also is still about taking out time, say every year. So it means you have made it a culture that you need to get away and not allow the seemingly important things. Now,
And the everyday living.
everyday
Choke
living
out your
to choke out
your love and
love
yeah.
in order to maintain that connection
Yeah.
and that bond. It's a great blessing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Amazing. So that's one challenge that you've shared, right, Dawn?
Yeah, Colin can share the next one about.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, I suppose in any long-term relationship, you're going to have ups and downs, and life happens, doesn't it? And I think sometimes things come as a surprise, and they're not always the good things. Sometimes good things come as a surprise, and sometimes your challenges come as well. So for us, we're about 2008. Dawn Dawn had she had a virus which turned into a long-term illness, which is called post-chronic fatigue, and she had that for well over a decade, to one extent or another, and so completely something we hadn't accounted for, and I remember right at the time, it was early 2008, when we were trying to come to terms with her having this illness. And there was a period of time where she didn't really get off the settee. At first, I thought she was just getting her own back for the times when I wasn't getting off the settee in our early years of marriage. But she literally didn't have the energy to get off the chair, even sometimes to just to do the normal everyday functions. And so that was a fairly trying time. And I think for much of that first decade of her illness, it really did massively affect her life, and of course affected our lives as well. We had this idea that we would do things together, and we didn't always get the opportunity to do things together, or certainly not the things that I wanted to do particularly together, because Dawn didn't have the energy or the staying power to do some of those things, particularly when it came down to getting out there in the hills and walking and things like this. So that was a very challenging time, and also during that time as well, Dawn has actually set up her own business as well. I mean, is there any worse a time to set up your own business than when you just sort of manage to get yourself into a situation like that? So that was a fairly that was well over a decade there of real challenge. And so I think when times like that happen, you've got a choice, haven't you? You've got to come back to that time at the altar when you said in sickness and in health, and I think for us, ironically or strangely enough, our relationship improved throughout that whole 10-year period. And I think that could be put down to a number of things. But I think one of the things in hindsight, I would say, is your love. And it sounds really, really cheesy, but your love changes over time. And your love is not so much about what the other person can do for you, it's more to what you can do for the other person. So I think the love changes from this sort of almost like a almost a form of self-gratification in a sense. Romance can be like that to some extent. To this place of I'm laying down my life for you. I'm putting down things that were on my list of things to do for you. And so for me personally, I think that was a real hallmark of that 10-year period, and it matured a relationship. There's a phrase that we used in the past, loving people back to life, and I think through that challenging time, it's been said that by people around our life that my stepping up in that kind of period of time helped to love Dawn back to life. I could probably give Dawn the opportunity to comment into that, because she'll tell you the real truth.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think from the word get-go, obviously, from doing working all day, going out every evening, having a very, very full life, to then having chronic headaches. For 9 months I was on the sofa, like he said. I couldn't even cry because the headaches were so bad. So I didn't have a lot to give. It was just a case of Colin trying to step in the gap and, make sure there's food on the table. We taught the kids how to cook. They were 11, so they were learning to cook, learning to do the washing, learning loads of stuff. But one thing Colin did do, he did step up, and he would ring me like 3 times a day, because obviously I'm on my own all day in pain, and he would give me a phone call just to say, hi, how are you doing? I'm just here, or I'm just there, just checking in on you, see how you're doing. That would be about 10 o'clock in the morning, and then he'd do it again about 1 o'clock, and then he'd do it again about 3, 4 o'clock. And he did that consistently throughout my illness. In fact, even to the point of maybe even 6 months ago, he'd ring me during the day at work, and I'd be like, what are you ringing me for? I'm working. he's still in the habit of ringing me just to check in and say hi. And I think that really showed me how much he loved me, because it was consistent. It wasn't just a whim over a couple of weeks. It's years that he's continued to do that.
8 years.
To love on me in that way.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, I'm glad our stories matched up there.
Wow. Oh, okay. And I mean, I'm processing what you said. So 8 years, going through those, the motions, and at the end, how were you able to, I know you've mentioned, I mean, you've practically shared it. You've mentioned how, Colin was there for you, Colin, and beyond that, which area was there a particular strain? Or did it affect your relationship, maybe finances, or sex life, or parenting? I mean, which area was most affected? Because I'm sure from what you said, the children had to step in, Colin had to step. But was there a time that it really put a strain on the relationship that it was kind of threatening to throw things out of balance?
I wouldn't say any of it made a big strain on us, to be honest, because we kind of pulled together. Obviously, we had financial strains because I wasn't working, I wasn't earning much, but we had some help from family to help us get through that. The kids, our daughter had a year. The year I was really poorly, the first year, was the year they went to senior school. So I got sick on 1st of January, and they went to senior school in September. And it was obviously a massive transition for them. They were leaving a junior school they knew people at and going to a senior school they knew no one at. And that was her year of kick-off. So bearing in mind that I'm having 9 months of severe headaches, I can't even move my head, I can't lay flat, nothing. And she's kicking off like having paddies, and Beth never had paddies. Josh was the paddy boy, always having paddies, always getting told off. She didn't. But that year, she had so many kick-offs and literally screaming so loudly that I couldn't cope with it. We had to get my mum to come in several times. I would ring my mum up and say, you're going to have to come over because I can't even be near her because she's screaming too loudly. But I think that probably was one of the biggest stresses that we had to work through, because she was having a very tough year, probably because I was so ill and because she was going to senior school. There was a lot happening for her in that year. And it was very out of character as well, which very often with kids, if something's happening that's out of character, and there's something wrong. So we had a lot to work through with Beth, didn't we, that year, trying to love on her. And we got my mum very involved, because Beth would say, I'm ringing Nana Maggie, I'm going to Nana Maggie's. She had a real strong connection with her, so we just kept bringing her in to support the family, really. because I couldn't do it, because I'm a very active mum. I'm very much spend a lot of time with the kids. I would talk them through everything, lots of explanations, so much so that Colin would often say to me, "You talk too much to them, just tell them how it is and move on." And I'm like, no, I want to explain to them. I want them to understand so that they can learn from it, not just be told off and move on. So for me not to be able to do that was very difficult, and it was hard for Beth as well, because she didn't have me spending 3 hours with her. And I mean, some nights I did spend an hour with her, even though I was really poorly, until she calmed down and was able to go to sleep. But yeah, I think that probably for me, that was the biggest challenge in that year for the family strain. I think the other things we just navigated quite well, I think, didn't we? And it, like Colin said, it drew us closer together. We worked together more. We loved on each other more. I would say from me getting ill to now, we have exponentially got more in love than we were when we first met and first got married, because it's a deep type of love, and it's like Colin was saying, it's more to do with the other person. It's like I'm loving on you and you're loving on me, and it's not about me.
I wonder if the lesson here is that the sooner you recognise the pressure that these things put on you in your relationships, the sooner you can let go and allow it to change you. Because I'm just thinking, for example, I'm a typical guy. I'm a solution-oriented person. I want to solve a problem. You're going to give me a problem. I'm less interested in listening about it, more interested in doing something about it. When you're in a situation like that where you are literally unable to provide a solution, or for example, there would be times I could see a gradual increase or a gradual improvement in Dawn's health, over 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, that kind of thing. And because Dawn was living in her own head, she couldn't necessarily see that. She saw more of a kind of a roller coaster of ups and downs, but didn't see the general gradual upward trend. And so for me, part of me getting frustrated about that was me wanting to point her towards a solution, to almost like to bring a solution. And I didn't have a solution. I had no control over what was going on with her, And so that I had to keep coming back to what not so much what can't I do, but what can I do in that kind of situation. Because I literally could not change the situation. But what I could do was change myself and how I did other things around in that situation. So I think for us, it was about how quickly we responded and recognised those pressures. That's made all the difference, I think.
Thank you. That's so beautiful and deep. One of the things that you said, Colin, when you just made first response to this question, I like the fact that you said it was to you, it was all about laying down your life. And as you said that, I remember what the Bible says about that we are to love ourselves. The men, love your wives as Christ loved the church. And how did Christ love the church? He laid down his life. Okay, and this was, the experience you just described is like a very practical example of the kind of love that Jesus is asking us, to live out in marriages and relationships. And he said, when I say be kind, when the Bible says be kind one to another, people think, when you think of that scripture, what comes to your mind? Maybe it's outsiders, strangers. Oh, be kind to strangers. Some people have been kind to strangers, and they have entertained angels, in the process. But let kindness start from within. Let it start from you and your spouse, because we've seen marriages where the couples are mean to themselves. They've totally lost the meaning of kindness in their relationship. And I'm just so glad that God gave you the wisdom to navigate that season. 8 years was a long time, But I mean, here you are today because of commitment, deep commitment. You sought help where you needed to, and that's one thing again in marriage. There are times, there are seasons that we can't do all alone. Let's learn to seek for help, even if external help. Let's learn to seek for help. I mean, life is not meant to be lived alone. Okay, I know you've written down a lot of things and so much lessons from just this response. So I'm going to give him the opportunity to tell us the things he has noted down.
Thank you so much. First and foremost, I want to say a big thank you for being vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's not everybody who will be comfortable coming to the public space and making themselves so vulnerable.
Yeah.
But we realize something, that vulnerability has a way of healing relationships.
Powerful.
It's a powerful venture.
Mm.
And when people hear your story, it tends to inspire, it tends to encourage, it tends to make them see that sometimes they will look at it, wow, I thought I've been through worse situations.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time you now hear another story that is even worse than yours, then that strength comes to tell yourself, and the encouragement comes, I think I can do something about it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being vulnerable. And I love the fact you picked it up from somewhere you said is about in times of sickness and health that we are meant to be there together. What I could pick from there is that you both have a resolved mind, no options, no option whatsoever. If there's going to be a challenge, then we have to get together and see how we can resolve the issue. Dawn talks about working together, and it's clearly it was clearly displayed from the explanation that you guys really had each other's back, and that you indeed work together. And you said something, you prioritize, not in your own exact words, but paraphrasing now, you prioritize the family, you prioritize the situation over any other thing around you in terms of work, because this is the main focus, and you need to do whatever it has to be done, whatever has to be done for her to get the support that she needed.
Yeah.
And we could also hear you talk about support system that you have around you. This another critical part that had actually helped, based on the stories that you have actually said, that there was a family support and mommy was there to help out, in taking up some of this stress that has actually that the health challenge brought about it. And we also noticed that you've been there for each other. You've been there for each other, and because you've been there for each other, you operated from the same page. You operated from the same page.
They have a team mindset.
Yes.
Some people, in their marriage, you'll be seeing husband and wife compete against each other. Strong competition. Yeah. We've had sessions, couples where we've had to, cancel, and you see that there's competition. Someone wants to outdo the other.
Okay.
But I love the fact that both of you are very team focused, and you put the good of the entire family. Not, okay, my good, or I've been the one that is being stressed, I've been the one doing all the taking care of you, or I've been the one. I mean, there was nothing like that. You're very focused about the good of the entire family. Thank you. Well done.
And finally, just to give one phrase, that you both evolve to be better. Some people fall into this kind of situation. They evolve into getting bitter.
Yeah. And
bitterness at some point become resentful. And if they are resentful at some point, they can go their separate ways. So thank you for your encouragement. And Jedishola said marriage is teamwork.
Marriage is teamwork. Yeah.
There's a comment in the
marriage is teamwork. So at this point, I'll say if you have questions for Colin and Dawn, please put them in the comment section. They'll be very happy to take your questions. Yeah. But we are not done. We're not done. We still have, marriage, just like life, it's full of ups and downs. So they're still going to tell us the high points, that 2 major high points that they've experienced in their marriage.
Before you move on, somebody said that, so I said, it's sad. Hearing your story, shifting from a life of singleness to being married is never easy. That's a comment in that session that we've gotten. We've heard somebody, it needs conscious adjustments to the new lifestyle. That's another comment. We'll take other comments as they come, but you can also please drop your question as they take on the high points.
Yeah. Okay.
I've got a high point. So this is quite recent, probably in the last 5 years, I think. I think one of the big changes you go through in a marriage is when your kids leave. Not run out the door, but when they actually like the nest, you know. And of course we've got twins, so they were leaving kind of in the same kind of 2-3 year window. You know, Bethany went to university. Josh decided to live on his own or with a friend of his, and before they got married. So we were all of a sudden empty nesters. So I think that that's a huge transition and change in any marriage for sure. I think so. The good thing for us here is that it probably comes down to a bit of wisdom, but sometimes the wisdom isn't necessarily highfalutin or or mysterious. Sometimes wisdom is very practical. And we decided to buy a caravan. So there's a bit of method in the madness here, because when you have kids, your kind of life, even though we'd made sure we'd spent time investing in our marriage, and Dawn's already mentioned we went away once a year and without the kids and all the rest of that. You know, your life revolves around your kids. There's no two ways about it, and that probably that's the way it should be as well. But then when your kids leave, it also leaves an incredible void, and also causes you to come back to the question of why are we married in the first place? Because marriage was kind of utilitarian in that sense. Having kids, you've got children to raise, and once those kids have flown the nest, then you're left with this question, what's next, or is there anything next? And so we, I know we'd seen a couple of friends of ours, marriages go the wrong direction at that point, simply because they just asked themselves that question and drew a blank. So we thought, well, we need to reinvent our marriage now. We need to decide to do something together, and decide to reinvest in a different way into the next 20-30 years plus or whatever. And so we bought a caravan, didn't we, Richard? And I think as simple as that might seem, we absolutely love what caravanning has brought to our lives. It's made us, apart from the arguments parking the caravan, which they've been kind of interesting, when I've been trying to reverse this 22-foot piece of metal into a tight space and Dawn doesn't know left from right.
We did get better at that.
We did get better, yeah.
You got less irritable and shouting. I got a bit better at giving connections.
Yeah, that's right. But I also got quite good at reversing the caravan.
You didn't need me really.
But apart from that one minor detail, I think that's been a real highlight for us. We've travelled around the country. We've now parked it up in a sort of a seasonal pitch, so we don't really tow it about these days. But saves the hassle. But that has really brought us together in a different way, I think, than perhaps anything in that 18 years of having kids that did.
It gave us a focus, didn't it? And it gave us time away from the home and away from work, and just when you go away from your home, you do feel like you're on holiday. So even if we went away for 2 days, we'd feel like we were away, and we'd just spend the whole time together. We wouldn't have a TV. We never had a TV in the caravan. It was always we'd read together, or we'd play Scrabble, or we'd go for a walk, or we'd walk up to the local pub and have a drink and come back. We did a couple of folk festivals because Colin's younger years were in folk, and I wanted to get to know that part of his life. So we did folk festivals, which was amazing as well. So yeah, it was a real highlight. It definitely gave us a focus and something we could do together. So yeah, it was really.
That's beautiful. I know Colin loved the outdoors, and I know Don. You go out, go with him on some of his expeditions. Let me let me let me tell it that way. From beginning, have you always loved the outdoors like Colin, or his passion rubbed off on you?
I'm not quite as in love with the camping side of the outdoors as Colin is. He will camp just in a sleeping bag with no tent or anything, and that you wouldn't get me doing that. But he did it last year, so I didn't go. But yeah, I love walking and going out into the countryside. And if wherever we go, if we see stone walls and sheep, we're very happy, both of us. That feels like where we should be all the time. We just love it. It's kind of where we're connected.
As an interesting story, when you first meet and you're looking for common ground, you're looking for those things that resonate with you both. We both said, I said, I like walking. And Dawn said, I like walking as well. Should we go for a walk? Anyway, about 13 miles into this walk through the countryside, Dawn says to me, I don't really like this kind of walk. So that was the lesson, understanding the definition of walking. For me, a walk was 20 miles. For Dawn, a walk was 3 miles around the block.
Colin, your work is an expedition. It's not just walking. So I feel for Dawn.
In fact, I would say that his work has rubbed off on me now, because
when
we were having a conversation just less than 1 week ago. He just recently did 25 miles.
25 miles, yes, I heard that.
So I said, but when we will go, I don't want us to start with 25 miles. Maybe we can start with like 5 miles. So that I don't come back and you see me now walking.
Walking.
Good.
Just make sure you don't get an invite from Colin, Dilly, because Colin has this reputation of saying, we're going to go on a 5-mile walk, and it's quite steady. Be an 8-mile walk, and it'll have some severe elevated, like steep hills in it and difficult paths to walk on. And by the end of it, you'll be like, I'm exhausted. But that's why I said that's not the kind of walking I like, because it's always longer than you think and harder than you think.
Well, I went for a walk. This is last year now. I went for a walk with a friend of mine, Lamy, him and his wife Ruth. They're Nigerian, but they live in Rugby now, down south in England. I said, we'll go for a walk, and you can take me for a walk. We can take the drones, and we can fly the drones in the countryside. And I've never seen someone sweat so much. But he ended up bringing his brother in Malaysia, and his brother was laughing at him down on WhatsApp, because he said, I can't believe my Nigerian brother is walking in the middle of the Peak District. So,
please, before I take him along, even though I need to walk as well, but I don't think I have the energy for 25 miles for now.
No, even I'm not settling for 25 miles.
Okay.
I said we start with 5 miles.
Okay.
You don't jump into something. He built himself to do that 25 miles walk.
Okay.
So let me gradually build myself.
Just start. Colin, please. Just start. Let's not get distracted. One thing I take away from what both of you have said, regarding the response to the question of high points in your marriages, both of you are a very intentional couple. If there's anything I'm taking away from this conversation, that both of you are very intentional. I mean, you got a caravan, you leave your comfort zone, go out somewhere, no electricity, because I know where people are able to camp with caravans, and then no TV, nothing to distract. So you have no choice but to focus on each other. And I think that's one thing that, everyone listening or watching should, take borrowing from you guys. Is there anything that is a source of distraction to our marriage? And at times, our children can be that source of distraction. Our work can be that source of distraction. I mean, just, being around things that Instagram, social media, things that, just take away our attention, have posed as distraction to a lot of us in our marriage. And I'm really grateful that we're having this conversation, because I can get distracted by Instagram.
I remember mine is movies.
Yes.
So I remember sometime and she's on her phone. It happens at different times. Sometimes it's her, it will be herself. Some other times it will be me. She's on her phone. We're right there on the bed, but we are not together. You know, I'm locked into my laptop. She's locked into her phone. Now, it's not just social media. Sometimes we are so engrossed with our jobs because we are really busy, and there's a high expectation coming from the organization expects from us, and you want to deliver high quality job. So you are tempted to do some things even when you are now with your partners. So that's intentionality is very critical, and I'm sure that's why she's emphasizing that whatever it is, when we are home, let us be home.
Mm-hmm.
And if at all there will be any excellent thing that should be done, don't make it the norm. Let it be once in a while. Don't let it be something that's frequent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is very, very key.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. So we try to work on that.
Yes, we will.
Because if I fix caravan, then later we'll discuss the outside of it.
Okay, thank you so much. So, is there any other high points you want to share? Or can I go to the next question?
I'll share a quick one. Very brief. Our honeymoon was a bit of a disaster when we got married. I won't go into details. I'll be here all night telling you the story. But we, about 10 years after being married, we got an opportunity to go to a conference in Australia, and we were going via Hong Kong. And it's a place that I wanted to go. I want to go to China desperately, but Hong Kong was a good second best for me. And we ended up getting a 3-4 day stay in Hong Kong, and we set that like a second honeymoon. And it was just an amazing 4 days together. When we got into the hotel, they upgraded us for no reason. This amazing room where executive people, politicians and stuff would stay in this room. And we opened the curtains in this room that are literally floor to ceiling across a massive area of the room, like the whole width of the room is these massive windows. Opened it and got to see the harbour in Hong Kong, Kowloon, and it was we were just blown away.
Wow.
This opportunity to have that second honeymoon, and it really was amazing, wasn't it? There were so many stories from that 4 days that more than made up for our disastrous honeymoon. Yeah, that's the best.
That was all things turning around to work for your good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was big 10 years. The honeymoon was a complete disaster.
But any plans to go to China soon?
I would love to go to China. It's not on the books, but I think you have to do it through proper tour people to go to China. So I've not really looked into it yet, but yeah, one day it's on my bucket list.
Good. If I'm to mention a high point on your behalf, I think as a mother, when Josh got married, I mean your son, that on your behalf, that was the high point for me on your behalf.
Yeah. Definitely a high point. And we have an absolutely gorgeous daughter-in-law. She is just beautiful.
Thank you. So my next question. Please, if you have questions, don't forget to post on the comment section. I have 1 or 2 more questions to go for Dawn and Colin. Now, you are here. If you have the opportunity to speak to couples, young couples, older couples who are going through issues, health issues, transitioning from one phase of marriage to the other, what would be your advice to them?
I think for me, I mean, communication is everything, isn't it? I think it would be foolish to think we don't change or circumstances in life don't change us. I think we're changing all the time. Our bodies are changing, our minds are changing, in a way, our identity is changing. We're growing old and growing up, and so tracking that, it's hard enough tracking in your own mind, let alone doing that with somebody else. So, I suppose, firstly, I would say being mindful and being self-aware is really important. You are changing. You are facing which put pressure on you, whether that's resulting in a good thing or not. And being honest and open with your partner about that. I mean, I think we haven't always got right. Don't get me wrong. But we do our best to make sure that we talk things through as much as we can. And we try. The older we've got and the longer we've been married, the more less time we wait and the less time we sit on things. You become more comfortable over time with your husband or wife, because comfortable in the right sense. So comfortable enough to be able to say things. It's back to this issue of competition, isn't it? If you're actually genuinely not in competition with your other half, then you can be really honest about things that are going on in your world. And I think the alternative to not being honest is it unfortunately creates friction, frustration, misunderstanding, and ultimately lose track of who we are in the process. We are individuals, but we're also a couple together. So if one of us doesn't understand the other one, then we don't understand our relationship.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Thank you. Don't say it before I give Dawn.
Maybe she should be done.
Okay.
Let's
Dawn
be done. Then I'll come. Yeah.
Questions. Let's check.
So you can go ahead.
There's a question. There's a question there on the chat which I can't quite read.
Okay.
We'll get it across.
Yeah.
So, did you guys ever experience such thing when she was going?
Okay. It's often said that hurting people like to hurt others, and they sometimes take their situations out on the closest persons to them. Okay,
Sorry.
On the closest persons to them.
Yeah.
So, did you guys ever experience such thing when she was going through the health situation? And if so, how did you deal with it? Did you get the question?
Speak from my perspective, and this is not just when Dawn was ill, but just in general. I think we do tend to take out our frustrations on those we love the most. And so it'd be nice to think that we could not do that. We've learned to do it less, but we have also learned to say sorry quicker.
Okay. Please, can you help just project a bit
so that we can? Could you project a bit higher?
Yes. Something not being something louder.
Yes.
I was just saying that my point was this, that it's not so much about not completely eradicating that kind of thing in your marriage. It's more about saying sorry quickly. So it'd be nice to think that we could strive for, or we can attain to perfection in our own soul, but fortunately, life has its way of surprising us and knocking us off balance, and generally, then your own insecurities come to the surface. So I think it's partly then just recognizing when that happens and being able to say, Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah,
Sorry.
I took that out on you. I shouldn't have done that. That's my perception, I think, on that one.
I think also it's about being aware as well. So if your partner is again like out of character or is snappy for no reason, or for us, well, for me personally, I will sit back and think, is Colin all right? Because I don't think I deserved that, and I don't know where it came from. So maybe he's not actually okay. And then rather than reacting to his kick off or whatever, it's actually coming back down to say, are you doing it, Colin? Has work been all right today, or something bothering you, to diffuse the situation by caring for that person rather than reacting badly to that kick-off. Because
Yeah.
it's like when you have kids, if they're kicking off, it's usually because something's bothering them. It's not necessarily just because they're having a paddy for no reason, although
Yeah.
Josh would do this. But if Beth ever did that, we knew something was troubling her. So we would sit her down and say, what's troubling you, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And I think it's the same in your marriage. If it's not normal for the other person to kick off at you and you think, well, where did that come from? To go around to answer them and think, well, actually, what's going on? Are you okay? Rather than getting defensive and feeling hurt. It's actually thinking, well, my partner's actually not doing very well. What's going on?
Yeah. I think the other side to that is as well, we're very different people, me and Dawn. So for me, I'm an external processor. I think I'm more likely to be the person who speaks out of turn or gets a bit annoyed or frustrated. But whereas Dawn's more likely to go quiet or to suddenly become introverted or cry for no reason. What I would say, no reason. So so that we have different ways of expressing that kind of thing, I think. And so I think we've learned a little bit more to recognise what the signs are,
Yeah.
and not to necessarily have a solution. This is one for me, but sometimes Dawn just needs a hug, and a kiss, and just nothing else. And even though every bone in my body wants to give her something to do or give her a solution, I try to resist that for fear of death, and just try and exercise a degree of empathy.
That's good. I like that perspective when you're able to think through and not just react, according to the hurt or offense, and think this is out of character for this person. I mean, something must be amiss somewhere, and then that gives you room to think through and say, Colin will not deliberately hurt me. Dele will not deliberately hurt me. Don will not deliberately hurt me because they love me, and then so it gives room for conversation to take place. Are you okay? Why are you acting this way? I really, really love that perspective. Thank you so much. Any other question that we have?
I just want to also point some things out from what had been said before. I noticed when you are giving, but I think I was waiting for if she had a PowerPoint to give before I do like a summary of that, before we took the question. That was when talking about somebody going through a health challenge now or financial challenge, in-law related challenge. That you're talking about what advice will you
Okay.
so that I want to show we are done speaking on that.
Yeah.
Especially we're waiting for Dawn to respond to that. If she has something to say to that. It's not compulsory, but if you have something to say to that as an advice to someone watching right now or somebody that will be listening to this after now, what advice would you give such a person when they are going through a challenging time in their own relationship?
I would say a date is my motto. When you go through a really tough time, you've got to take one step at a time and deal with, the next hour, especially if it's long-term illness. You've got to stick with today. And sometimes for me, depending where I was in the illness, it might be an hour at a time. Because it's such a hard day, I would only think about the next hour. And then when I got to the end of that hour, I would think about the next hour. So that was something that I learned very early on, not to think about tomorrow, not to worry about tomorrow, not to get stressed about why am I still sick, when am I going to be better, when am I going to be able to do that, etc. So yeah, I think, that's definitely one of the big ones. I would say friendships are very important. Obviously, your partner, your husband, whatever. But friendships are very, very important as well. Even if you've got one person who you can reach out to and to let them know when you're not doing very well. Sometimes I've got a tendency to go it alone and just suffer in silence. But again, learning to reach out and let people know, actually, I could do a phone call, I could do with a coffee. Reaching out and asking for help was a big one for me.
Yeah.
So much so that I used to do everything myself. And I remember in those first few months of not even being able to shower or get dressed or make myself any food or anything. I couldn't do anything for myself. I would sit on the sofa, bed on the sofa, and I'd be looking at we had a fireplace then that had a top to it. What's it called? Top of fireplace? Mantelpiece on the fire. And I could just see the dust getting thicker on this mantelpiece. And with all my power, it took everything. Could have got off that settee. I would have got off the settee and gone into the other room and got some polish and duster, and I would have dusted it. But I couldn't do it. And one day my mum came to see me, and I wouldn't even ask her to do it because I wouldn't ask anybody to help. I had a chat with my mum about it, and I said, would you mind just dusting that, because it's really winding me up. And then she said, you need to ask more, you need to ask for help. I don't mind doing anything, just ask, don't just keep looking at it. So really, just put that aside, however you feel about asking people for help, and actually reaching out and getting people to support you and help you in that. And being patient with yourself as well, because it's not a difficult time, especially if it's complicated.
I think for me, in terms of the sort of the relationship side of that, again, speaking from my own experience, it's like trying to reflect on how my mind works, and trying to get your head around something like this, because you do live in this kind of weird tension between thinking this is the way it's going to be forever and hoping that then tomorrow or today, and that's quite difficult place to exist. That sort of like you're in limbo land, but in the here and now, in terms of what you can do, for me, I think just thinking back, I probably in a way developed a bit of a vision for how I could be as the best person I could be while we were in that situation. It was almost like my little project or my little challenge in a way. So I think like anything, wherever there's purpose in something, part of illness is you lose hope, and so you have to keep stirring hope all the time, and hope is expressed through purpose, through maybe even a goal or a series of goals. So I think keeping an eye on your eyes lifted up towards what you can do rather than what you can't do is really important.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much. Thanks so much. I noted the points you both made, and I could see where Colin first started. It talks about to be self-aware. To be self-aware, and he mentioned something: be open to change, because who you are before you are married, you have to be flexible to evolve into who you will be after marriage. So that down the line, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years, then there's the aspect of being open to each other. You mentioned that. So if you are going through a particular challenge right now, it could be financial, it could be in the area of sex, it could be in the area of in-law, it could be area of health challenge. These are some of the points that they've actually put together that we are just rolling out. Just doing a recap, communication is there, and also to create a freedom for you to express yourself without any fear of intimidation. So that was also pointed out. Then deal with issues one at a time. Deal with it one at a time. Then develop friendship, because in the atmosphere of friendship, you're able to be yourself. You're able to ask yourself real questions and able to deal with those issues. And I love this part: seek help.
Seek help. I was going to say that. I mean, let's seek help.
Seek help.
Seek help.
Nobody is Superman here. Even we have people that we are accountable to, that we know, we trust their judgment, and if we need any help, we can just a little perspective can bring a whole lot of difference in that situation. Yeah. Thank you so much.
I think that we've had a good time. It's almost 1 hour 30 minutes. We just have 3 minutes to go, and we'll use that 3 minutes to say a big thank you to you, Colin and Dawn. You guys have been amazing. You've shared it all, not holding anything back. Thank you so much for sharing your story and how you're able to navigate some of those very difficult seasons of your marital journey. We appreciate you. We love you guys. And we pray that you continue to enjoy your marriage. Please, I love your intentionality about each other. Continue to be intentional about each other. And your marriage will continue to inspire in Jesus' name.
Amen.
And to everyone who have logged on, thank you so very much. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the engagement. Thank you for the reactions in the comment section. We totally love it, and we are here for all these things. So a big thank you. And don't forget, this is going to will be uploaded in an hour or two.
About 2 hours.
And so you can come back, to watch the video, share the video. If you know any of your friends, your relatives, colleagues, who you think will benefit from this enormous wealth of wisdom that Colin and Dawn have shared tonight, please send them the link to the video. Our handle is at Delua Talks Real. And don't forget to follow us if you are not following us yet. We have so much on the page going. And then we also have a YouTube channel. It's the same, the name is the same, Uwa Talks Real. Because we're always talking real. I mean, we say it the way it is. We're honest. We bring real people like Colin and Dawn. So you have a lot to learn, by going on our page and going on our YouTube channel. Thank you once again, everyone, and have an amazing weekend.
Just one quick thing. I dropped their handles there. Please reach out to them. The handle is also there for the Delua Talks Real. We said we'll be giving this offer in every session, and if you send an email to offers@deleagbogun.com, there will be a link that you will get. I just posted it in the chat. offers@deleagbogun.com. You will have a free ebook. It's Understanding Conflict Management. Understanding Conflict Management is a part of the main book that was written. It's free. So once you're able to send an email to it, you get a link. Click on that link. Then it will drop in your box. Then you can have it as a thank you gift from us to you.
And that book is loaded to show you how to resolve or how to manage conflicts, because he has had to learn from the hard way managing conflict with me. So thank you so much, everyone. Have an amazing weekend. I will say have an amazing weekend again. Do you have anything to say? This is my last have an amazing weekend.
Let's just So we appreciate them. Just drop the comments in the section.
Thank you.
Let's thank them. Okay, clapping emoji, fantastic, love
Nice.
so just help us just drop it.
Appreciate Colin and Dawn.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
God bless you. So we'll see you at the
In
next
2 weeks' time.
2 weeks time. Yes.
Bye.